you take somebody that's somebody you would hang out with, right? It's all about the cool factor. The only thing that they have to give to you is their money. They have no real life experience. They don't have a seat at the table. They're not doing big things in their life, and so they can't give you any free advice. If you have an attorney sit in your chair, think of all the free advice you're going to get from that attorney, or a real estate professional, or a doctor. You name it. They're going to give you advice that you wouldn't have access to without paying thousands of dollars to get access to their advice. But as their barber, they're going to give you all the advice in the world. And so that's my issue with creating a barber shop where, hey, this is a place where all my buddies can come and hang out. You're limited, just like you said, you're limited on your growth potential.
So and I also think that sometimes there's that, like, your barbershop is the network. It's a hub. It's a place where people come and gather together. That's what makes a neighborhood barbershop so appealing and so inviting, is that everybody's invited, everybody's welcome, and it's a great chance to network with other professions, with other people, not only for you yourself, but also for your clients when they're sitting waiting for their haircuts, that they can network, that they can build relationships, and then that's how you build a culture in your barbershop.
Mm-hmm. One of the biggest weaknesses that I see as well is there's such a temptation to focus on the cool factor and to just look cool with your friends. And so you start making a little bit of money and you go out and you buy the car and you start spending more money than you should. And even before then, you want to look like you're already there. You want to look like you've already arrived. And that brings major, major problems in our industry. Have you noticed that?
Oh, it's huge. Well, because it's not sustainable. Plus, like, if you're not reinvesting in your shop, in your education, in your career, and you're spending as quick as you're making, in 5 years, you're never going to have anything to show for it. You won't be able to buy a home because you won't have anything set aside. If you continue to spend and spend and spend as fast as you make, you're going to have a slow week, you're going to have a slow month, you could even have a slow year, and then you've overspent what you can do. And it's devastating to watch professionals hit that and have that problem.
Yeah. I watch people, they spend like crazy, they make mistakes, they live in their 20s and 30s to live for their friends, right? They want to look cool, but they pay for it. They look stupid actually when they're in their 40s and 50s because they're still living in an apartment, they can't afford anything, they're broke, they're being evicted all the time because of the mistakes they made in their 20s and 30s. And so avoid the temptation to do that. It's not about the cool factor. In fact, don't take any advice from anybody that you know that's poor, which generally is all of our friends, right? When we're young and we're trying to get established, all of our friends are broke, so they don't have anything to teach you. Surround yourself with people that are doing far better than you ever would. So that kind of brings to our next thought, and that is, how do you learn what you're supposed to learn? How do you learn this knowledge? And I like to tell people, you go to lunch. It's the power of going to lunch. So you find somebody that's doing something that you're not, that you admire. This is something that I've done, and I remember that's helped me along the way, but I would go up to somebody and I'd say, hey, Mr. Jones, I'm really interested in this, what you're doing. I'd love to learn more about it. Would it be possible? Could we go to lunch? I'd love to hear your story. Now, there's a couple things about this. Everybody loves to talk about themselves. Even people that are established, even people that have done really well, they want to talk about themselves. And so, of course, they go, oh my gosh, somebody's interested in me. That need to feel that need to have someone interest doesn't change just because you're established. And so what happens? You go to lunch, right? Now this is my favorite, is you talk, who should do all the talking?
They should.
They should do all the talking. You don't say a word. You're not there to ask to pitch them. You're not there to ask for money. You're not there to ask them to invest in your shop. You just listen and just look for one little tiny nugget. Right? We talk about that all the time. Just find one thing. If you can just get one thing, then that'll help you. Okay, now here's the trick. Who pays? Now, who if I was to go to lunch with you and you were the expert, and I said, like, who would you have? Who would pay?
Who invited? Who did the invitation?
Who did the invitation? Would you pay? So if you were the expert and I was the young person, would you let me pay?
I would offer to pay, but if you wanted to pay, I'd let you pay.
You'd let me pay?
Yeah.
I think so first of all, the person that's the expert is not going to let you pay because their ego's on the line. They're the ones that have been elevated up here, and they're not going to let you pay. You're the, quote, smaller person, right? So they're going to pay. So you have a chance to go to lunch, learn all of this, and you don't have to spend, it's not going to cost you. Now,
okay, let me give you a spin on this. When you're behind the chair, you don't have lunch. You don't have time for lunch unless it's your day off, and your days off are precious and your time off is precious. And so what you do is you invite those people into your shop, you invite those people into your chair, you give them an extra long service, and then you do the same thing. You ask the questions, and typically you can get away with them not paying, but it's a way for you to pick their brain. And a lot of times I always call it like you just need one or two questions and they will go down so deep into what they know, and they feel invited into your space and they share more. That's how you do it behind the chair, because you don't have time for lunch.
So they give you all that advice.
Mm-hmm.
So they're still going to pay for the service, right?
Yes, yes.
But then they sit there. I love that. I love that. So if we're kind of back to the friends thing, if we build a shop that only caters to our friends, we're missing all of that.
Well, so when you're looking for a shop, can we talk about that?
Yeah.
When you go and look for a shop, don't go to a shop where you know everybody, because what's the purpose of that? You already know everybody. You already know what they know. You already hang out with them. You've already learned from them. Go to a shop where you know no one. Go to the shop where you're the little fish. Go to the shop where you are intimidated by their skills. You're intimidated by the way that they take care of their customers and their clients. And then you can just learn so much. Not only will you learn from them, you'll learn from their clients, but you'll have a whole new ecosystem of people that you can learn from and be. But when you're looking for your shop, you don't want to go where your friends are, because where are you going to grow? In a few years, you're going to outgrow them and you're going to be looking for a new shop.
So you're telling me that if I'm looking for a shop, I need to go somewhere I'm not comfortable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I can grow. I love that. I think that's a great advice. Sadly, we focus on what makes us comfortable, right? Everything we do is, well, we don't want to go out of our comfort zone, but that's where all the growth is.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Okay, so talk about, I'm fascinated by the McDonald's system and how they do things. What is the McDonald's system? How can that apply to owning a barber shop?
Okay, so McDonald's is anyone. They could hire anyone today and they could work and they could be taking orders with. They have such a system. It doesn't matter who it is. The product is the same. They have a consistent product because their process is the same. So in your shop, you have to have things set up that anybody can set up. Anybody can take care of your clients, that everything is seamless, and that with just a little bit of training, a little bit of onboarding, it's consistent and it stays within your culture. But I do think that does go to hiring the right people that are already in your culture, that you don't have, that they have the understanding, that they have the work ethic, that they show up, that they take care of the clients, that they're dependable, all of those things. So that's how you get the McDonald's system in a barbershop.
It seems like if I were to put just a one phrase on the McDonald's system, it's just simple.
Yeah.
Anybody, it doesn't require a PhD to come in and do their system. And I've seen that with barbers, where their system is so complex that they train, but every barber, for the majority of barbers, want to go off and they want to own their own. Yeah. And they get so offended because the barber now leaves and they've put all this time and money because their training system is so complex, or what they offer, that they have to have PhD barbers to work there.
Right. You have, our method, our way, our scalp treatment, our shaves. This is the way we do it, which is fine. You just have to know that you're limiting who you're bringing on. Your overhead, your training time is higher, and then your clients are going to notice that difference.
Yeah. It just, sadly, when they have to rehire, it takes a long time to build them back up, just in time for them to quit.
Right, and the owners get so frustrated because they want people to come and they want their barbers to stay for years and years and years, but they don't build a system where the barbers want to stay for years and years and years.
So that's the other thing then, is McDonald's has a system.
Right.
And obviously a training system. Do you see barbers with any kind of training systems at all today? Generally, when you go into shops and...
Off the top of my head, I can't think of any. I think if you went and asked some shop owners, especially if they own several shops, they will tell you they have a system. But I would bet if you ask 2 or 3 barbers what their system is, you'd get 2 or 3 different answers. So
that's one of the biggest complaints as well, is that barbers go into a shop and they get so frustrated that the owner was frustrated with them. Hey, you didn't do what you're supposed to do. And they said, well, wait a minute, I didn't know. No one ever showed me, or there was no process to help them understand what the culture of that shop is and how things should run. So just by having a system alone is gonna elevate your shop.
So I would suggest, if you're a shop owner and you don't want to be there present all the time, and you want your shop to run flawlessly and you want it to run the same every day, I would actually invest in a receptionist or a front desk person, because they just by the nature of their job. And you're not paying them what you're paying your barbers. You're paying them, 15, 20 an hour, but they're the ones that keep everything, the culture of the shop going. They're the ones that are always greeting the guests. They're the ones that are always answering the phones. They're the ones that are taking care of the towels. And then, by example, new barbers will follow in line behind receptionists. It's very popular in salons, and I think barbershops who have owners who don't want to be there all the time would do better to invest in a front desk or a receptionist person.
Okay, so that reminds me, can a shop then truly run itself? Can you have a shop that you can leave and go on vacation, or I like to say, even if you're sick and you can't be there? What would it take for a shop to run itself? You mentioned the secretary, not the secretary,
the front desk.
The front desk person.
I think if you have a shop where you've had the same people and there's not turnover for a few years, I think absolutely you could leave and know that it would be the same when you came back. But if your shop has turnover every year, you're kind of risking that.
Okay, so that's another point then. There's a lot of turnover in these shops. What can be done as a shop owner that would limit your turnover? What are the kind of things that make people want to leave?
It's always money. It always comes to money, right? And and barbers, they want to be business owners. They want to do their own business. I know in talking to a lot of the alumni, when they're looking for new shops, it's because of the money piece. So if more shop owners offered booth rent, and you do see the shops that do have longevity, that do have the people that are there over 5+ years, they typically have booth rent, and that allows you're almost business partners in that. The barber has his own business, has his own hours, makes his own money. The shop owner has dependable income coming in every month. It might not be the same as what he was making on commission, but long term, the shop owner's in a better position because he has longevity, he has dependability, he knows and understands how much money he's going to be making when he has more booth rent. I think it's a combination of the booth rent and that.
So that's a secret that not many barbers think. They feel like they've got to come in and have everybody, they're going to pay them on commission. But here's the secret. I've been in multiple shops where they have people that have been there for 10 years or more. And the reason why they stay is each person is an individual owner, meaning they are all independent contractors. As you said, booth rent. And they're under the name of ABC Barbershop, right? The name of the shop, but they each have their own merchant account or credit card reader. They each have their own prices. But it doesn't have this feeling like everybody's their own shop. It feels like it's the one shop.
Right.
But everybody gets to be their own business owner.
So, and a lot of times a lot of times those people have established clientele, so they're not taking walk-ins. So the shop owner will still have some commission people to help with the walk-ins. But then you also, and it goes to the argument, do you stay and do booth rent, or do you go and do your own salon suite or barber suite or whatever you want to do in that case? And both sides are to be argued, but the benefit of being in a shop is you still have that network, you still have that communication. If you go on vacation, the other barbers can help you out. When they go on vacation, you can help them. There's a lot more collaboration when you do in the shop. When you do that in the shop, when you go to the suites, you are an island. So that kind of
you're limited on your ability to learn,
right?
To grow your network, as you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
That's the disadvantage of salon suites.
Yeah.
Kim, let's talk about the misnomer that the more time you spend on a haircut, the better, or the increase in value there is, the happier the client's going to be. What are your thoughts on that?
It falls into the 80-20%. I think 20% of the population do care about that, but realistically, 80% of the population value their time more than they value a good haircut. And the whole thing is that barbers who are offering 45 to 60-minute haircuts, yes, there are people that want to do that, but you're losing 80% of the population who don't care. They never look at the back of their hair. Honestly, a haircut to them is an errand. It's changing their oil. It's something that they have to do every few months or even every 4 to 6 weeks, and they don't have time. They don't care. They would rather get in and out and have a dependable service than to have a perfect haircut. And the reality is, there's no such thing as a perfect haircut. Tim Height said it all the time. Good is good enough, and a perfect haircut is on the floor in the next service. So you gotta let it go. But I have found in my own business that when I took care of the client's time and I respected their time, I ran on time and I got them out of the chair when they needed to. They were so much more willing to come back to rebook with me, and they really appreciated that as much as a haircut. The respect of their time.
So we talked about having clients that can give you value, like doctors and attorneys. Those are people that the one commodity that they don't have more of is time. And so if you can provide that service in a shorter amount of time, they're going to value that even more. Think about everything any type of service. Generally, if you want something done, if you can do that in a shorter amount of time, you can actually raise your prices. But for some reason, barbers think that they have to charge more. But see, that turns away someone like me that values their time. And just like you said, this is an errand. This is something that I have to do. It's not something that I necessarily want to do. So that's where the 80% falls.
Right, exactly. Well, and it goes to, I mean, honestly, that's what's happened in the industry. If you look at the chain salons, you drive by any chain salon on a Saturday and they have a line out the door. And a few blocks away, there's a barber shop with barbers sitting there hanging out. Why is that? Because people know when they go to the chain salons, they will be in and out in 15 minutes, and they do not care the quality of their haircut. It's not about the price of the haircut, it's the time. And it's the ease that a lot of times they've booked online and they know they can walk in and they'll get that. If we offer that as barbers and we let them know that not only can I offer you the time quality, but I offer a better quality, you can start getting those clients that are at the chain salons.
So for those of you that aren't quite convinced that that's a thing, all of those chain salons would not exist if they weren't offering that time feature. The fact that there's chain salons on every major shopping center and they're all packed, that's the proof where majority of the population does not care about the length of time of a haircut as far as being long. They want it as short as possible so they can move on with their lives.
Well, they can test it. Talk to anyone that's gone to a chain salon and ask them why they went. And they will tell you it was the time. It was the time.
It's the time. Okay, a couple other things I want to talk about. Often barbers, they think that they hit this mark, they might get close to $100,000 range, right? And then they think, boy, I'm the king now, and they just go nuts, right? They go and buy a car, and they're spending and all of this. Is $100,000 really the top? Like, what are your thoughts on the $100,000 mark as a barber?
It's not sustainable. You cannot, it's not enough to afford your family, to afford your lifestyle, to afford everything. Because if your top line is $100,000, you have your taxes, you have your overhead, you have any extra education that you have on top of that. So what do you mean? You said not,
expand on that. Sustainable. What part of that's not sustainable?
You're not making enough.
You're still not making enough.
You're still not making
enough.
But
can they make more?
Absolutely.
I mean, is that the ceiling? Because they think that that's the top. I've really hit it. You know, I'm on the throne.
I think they've started to see what's on the other side of the fence. I think they have an idea of the ability that they have, but they really haven't targeted into their full marketing potential. And at that point, they are probably working over 50 hours a week. They're probably really putting in a lot of time and energy, and they're going home exhausted. But what they're not doing is they're not selling retail, they're not upselling, they don't have additional services that they can offer, such as the chemical services that our clients want. And so they've maxed out the amount of time that they have because they can only offer so many haircuts.
Okay, there's one thing that really, you always talk about it when you see a barber, and it's the main reason why they're not making more money.
Oh, they don't rebook.
They don't rebook.
They don't rebook.
Okay. So why don't they rebook? I had a guy tell me the other day, he says, well, we don't rebook because, well, I just want to let the client do it and I don't want to pressure him. What are your thoughts on that?
It's so easy to do. It's so easy to do. Your dentistry books you. When you go get your oil change, they don't ask. They put that sticker on there. Everybody rebooks all the time. That's the way our world works. And people are so busy. And if you know at Tuesday at 4 o'clock that they can get their haircut because today's Tuesday at 4 o'clock, and you just say you need 4 weeks. In 4 weeks, you're going to need to maintain this haircut. Let's just put it on the books. You can change it at any time, but at least we know it's in place. A lot of times the barbers they feel like they're pressuring, they feel like they're selling, and actually you're solving your client's problems. Your client doesn't want to think about their haircut. We already talked about that your client feels like getting their haircut is an errand. So if you tell them it's already set, you don't even have to think about it. You come in here the 4th Tuesday of every month and get your haircut, and in and out, not only does that client appreciate it because they don't have to think about it, but then it's money you can almost start counting on. It's money that you can know that you'll have coming set aside. When you look at your books in the beginning of the week and you see that you have all these rebooks, you know that 90% of those clients are going to come in and they're not going to no-show. When you look and you're waiting for walk-ins or you hardly rebook and you don't know who's going to show up, it makes it really hard when you're behind the chair to know what you're going to be taking home at the end of the week.
Okay. So that's just one tool. There's
Yeah.
many of them, but that alone. Now, the whole idea of rebooking, what's the end goal here? The goal here is to make money. It's to provide. So people make excuses. That's what I'm noticing, right? Of why they can't be a better provider, why they can't make more money, because it's uncomfortable for them to rebook. That's the real story.
But you're losing money, because if you, like, I know for myself, when I need to make an appointment, it's a week or two before I actually make the appointment. And when you look at that in a year, if someone books with you 6 times a year and you only get those 6 times, but they wait and then you maybe only got them 5 or 4 times, then it's less.
Per client. That's
Per
a lot
client.
of money
Per
that you miss
client.
out on.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money that you miss out on. So these are not difficult tasks to do. This is stuff that, you know, you don't have to go out and get a master's degree or something crazy. It's just little tweaks, little things. These are just little issues that barbershops have that they might even think about that would change their entire income strategy and change their whole world. So another one that I've noticed here is you walk into a barbershop and the type of music that they play, or the decor, the layout is back to that friend thing. It's designed for them on, well, this is my favorite color and this is my favorite music. And they forget who it's really for. Who is it really for?
It's always about the client. It's always about the client. You never want someone to open up the door and think they're in the wrong place and close the door and leave, even though they need a haircut, because they don't feel comfortable. And I can tell you that does happen. 100% that does happen. And even when I've gone, you know, as a barber or as a stylist looking for shops, if I open up the door and I know that that's not a place where I want my clients to go, I will close the door and I will leave. I won't even ask if they have chairs open, because I don't want my clients in that environment. I want, you know, from the 12-year-old to the 22-year-old to the 62-year-old to feel comfortable in coming. Those are my clients.
So the music, the type of music you play, should be specific to the type of client you're trying to attract. If it's a family environment, you should play music that's appropriate. So what's on the walls, the same thing. The kind of magazines that you might have out there, this is not the place for you and your buddies to hang out and then want to attract everybody. It just won't work. You're gonna offend, or even those people that may have a chance to give you money are going to walk right back out the door, as I mentioned with my dentist. One thing that I want to talk about is you always bring up how the game has changed, or the rules of the game has changed. And I don't know that people think of this as a game. They want to play the game, but they want to make up the rules. They want to say, well, I want to be successful, but I'm going to dress this way, and I'm going to put this on the walls, and so they think they can make up their own rules to the game. How does that truly, what happens when people do that?
Well, you're just limiting. You're 100% limiting. And then the other thing is, if that's your personality and you're around that 24/7 and you're in that environment, when you go home, who are you? Like, I like putting on my work stuff. I like doing my work things, but I also like when I go home, I'm in my home environment, and those are two different worlds, and I can decompress. You know, if it feels the same, right? Whether you, like, I went to the gym and I went to the shop and then I went home, and you've worn the same clothes the whole time, that feels weird. Like, how do you feel professional? How do you feel like you've taken it up a notch? How do you know that you've really performed at your best if you haven't set the stage to do that?
Yeah. One thing that I want to address is that barbers, the way they dress specifically, they think, well, it's a way to express ourselves, right? We get to be creative. But in doing so, they don't do anything that demands the respect of the client, because they look no different than the guy mowing the lawn out at their apartment complex. Right. So if you come directly from the gym and you're cutting hair in the same outfit, the client's not going to look at you as somebody that is important or valuable. One thing I learned years ago is that what clothes do in the way you dress, somebody's going to look at you and determine if you are worth finding more about, right? If they should ask any questions. If you're dressing down and too casual, they're going to assume that you're not worth their time. But if you dress the part, they're going to look at you and say, hey, this guy might have something for me, or he might have something interesting. He's going to be worth the conversation. So with that, you get opportunities. It's a way for networking. But these barbers, as they're dressed down, the client then thinks that, oh, your service isn't worth much because you obviously don't think it's worth much by the way you dress.
Well, it kind of goes to that professional. Like when someone's asking advice about their hair, what to look like, if you you look like the professional in the room, then they're going to value what you say even more. And a lot of times when people walk into a shop, they never know who the shop owner is because the shop owner looks the same as the clients, looks the same as everyone else because they haven't differentiated themselves. But if you want to appeal, if you want to be the expert in the room, if you want to be the professional barber, and if you want to charge those those prices and have that reliability, you have to show up as a professional.
Yeah. So that just means dress different. Doesn't mean you have to dress like I'm dressed. Not everybody wants to wear slacks and a long sleeve shirt. But in our state, they basically deregulated a lot of our license, and that's because they did not view barbering as a real industry. And to be honest, that's because barbers don't demonstrate that it's a real industry. They don't demonstrate that it's a professional industry where you can make phenomenal money. Your income can far outweigh what you can earn with a college degree. But if you don't dress that, people just assume that you're worthless. And then they think you're cheap, right? I'll offer you less, I'll pay you less. Like you're not worth much.
I do say though, as I've gone into a few different shops throughout this last year, I have seen a lot of shops that are really nice dressed, that do have a dress code, that do have the slacks, and the whole appearance and the whole culture and the feel, the vibe of the shop is a lot different. And it's very welcoming.
Yeah.
And you understand the rules when you walk into the shop and you see that, right, that the barbers are professional, that they've dressed that way. You do get just by looking at that.
It's still, the whole idea that barbers want to make this whole level, but they want to make up the whole rules of the game. And that's just it, is these are laws. I talk about this all the time. If you satisfy the laws of being wealthy, you will be wealthy. But you don't get to interject laws of being poor in there and expect to be wealthy. It doesn't work that way. And so everything we're talking about today is really how to become not an average barbershop, but a highly respected, a highly successful barbershop.
Well, and you can't be a barber and make your own rules. And as much as we want to be as independent as we want to be, and as much as we want to have self-expression, you're playing in the business game. You're playing with money. You're trying to attract clients. You have to do those things that will attract those clients. You have to play by those rules. You can use that, use your freedom of expression on your own downtime and when you're doing other things. But if you want money, you got to play by the money rules.
Exactly. And that to me is where people miss, right? I wish people would just accept that instead of trying to fight it, because that's one, we don't get to change it. There's kind of a misnomer that you don't have to learn as much as you can. You don't need to learn every type of haircut. And so many barbers get good at pretty much one basic haircut. They're really good at a fade. They struggle with the shears. That's something that they're kind of insecure about and they hide behind. How do you feel about barbers that become one-trick ponies?
They have a very limited career because trends come and go and things change. And sometimes one of the things that happens when you're in the industry after so long is you get burned out. You get burned out of the same clients, you get burned out of doing the same cut. There's no challenge, there's no new creativity. So if you can set money aside and you can invest in your career, you invest in a whole new demographic that you get to work on. You get different clients. You can really elaborate and really grow on that piece. But I do really think that barbers really need to always continue to invest in their education. And that's really what Tim Height did. That's how Tim Height became the expert, is he always was investing in his career. He was never done learning. And he traveled the world seeking out that knowledge. And I mean, it's amazing what it did for his career.
Yeah, there was nothing that he was intimidated by or that he couldn't do. And that's one thing that you pointed out, as trends change, he was able to adapt. So the principle stayed the same, but he was able to create any type of haircut because he knew how to do it, how to produce it. So sadly, I think a lot of barbers could do so much better and attract a totally different clientele, or they can increase their clientele just because their skill set increases.
Well, and one thing that we've noticed in talking to barbers is they are losing their clientele to salons because they are not offering the colors and the perms that their clients want, especially those clients that are under the age of 40 to 20. They are not going to keep their same haircut like they did in high school. When you're cutting someone that's over 40 or 50, chances are they've had the same haircut since they were in high school.
Okay,
but when you're talking to the millennial, to the Gen Z, those people, they continually want new cuts, new things. So it could have been 20 years ago, your barber could have known a handful of cuts, right? The poster that has 20 haircuts, and he could have done any of those, and he would have been pretty successful. He would have been okay.
So are people more like, is the longer hair and the perms and that kind of a thing? Are you seeing it come back?
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. And they don't know where to go. Your client sits in and they say they want a perm, and the barber says, I don't do perms. They go and they ask their mom, where's their mom going to take them? Where's their sister
Right.
going to tell them?
A salon.
To the salon.
Right.
And so now all this work that we've done to get the clients back into the barber shop, you've just lost because you don't have that license. And it doesn't take that much. You don't have to offer everything. You just have to have one or two tools that you can do to continue to grow your clientele and offer your services.
Okay. One thing I'd like to address is consistency. Now, Mr. Height talked about that all the time. So you're going to have somebody come in and sit in your chair, and they're going to say, hey, give me what you gave me last time. And most barbers are going to say, I don't remember what you gave last time. Mr. Height always talked about having a routine or a method or something that you were consistent with. How does that help you give a consistent result?
Well, Tim Height says, I knew where I stood when he was in my chair, so I knew where I started the haircut. And so, but it gives you predictable results, and especially when you might have someone that you only see once or twice a year for whatever reason. Maybe they don't live here in the area, maybe they live somewhere else half the year, whatever, and you're never going to remember. But if you have a process that I know that this is a taper, I know that, and you can, and your consultation a lot of times will tell you when was your last haircut, how that was. But if you have a consistent process, you'll always be able to get consistent results. But you have to always have that same process and be aware of the time feature and be aware. And if you get fancy, then you're going to have to be fancy on the rest of his haircuts forever. Because he's going to expect that. So if you're always, and then you're going to be wearing yourself out. But if you have a consistent, high quality haircut that you can produce over and over and over again, they're going to keep coming. It's going to be more reliable. If you want to do fancy, do stage work, do competitions, and that's where you can get that creativity and get that recognition. But keep it the same for your clients.
I noticed always as well that he would talk about doing the most important part of the haircut first. So for example, on a man's haircut, what's the number one reason? It's usually the neck, right? That's the one part that they can't really do themselves. So he would start in the back. He would start on the nape, especially with a taper. That's the part that takes the most time. And so he would make sure that the important part got done and was done well. And if they do run out of time, you can quickly do it. And if necessary, you don't have to do the top. You can let them go. So that's one technique that I've seen that doesn't sound like anything significant, right? But doing the most important part first, and then that gives you that consistency that we talked about as well, because that's where you're earning your money, is on that difficult part. But that makes all the difference.
Okay, so one thing that I have learned about being behind the chair is I was always shocked at how little barbers know their numbers. They might know how many clients they have, they know how many they have, but if you ask them, how many clients did you have this month compared to last month, or this second week compared to that second week, they don't track their numbers. They don't know what they're making. And they're not setting any money aside for their taxes. They don't have any idea what is coming. And it still boggles my mind. I still have, stylists who have been in the industry over 20 years. And once a year, when they go and they give their accountant all their information, that's when they know how much money they make.
So they have no clue how much they
have no
earn
clue.
the whole time.
And a lot of times they're spending it, like we've talked about, they're spending it as fast as they're making it, or they've made so much more money than they expected and they didn't set enough money aside for their taxes. Where if you just, at the end of the week, at the end of the day, if you just track your numbers on a simple Google sheet, you'll always know. And I myself got myself in trouble one year. I wasn't tracking how many new clients I was getting, and the next year I was slower. And it was because I hadn't attracted new clients. I was comfortable, I was steady, but I didn't have anyone new coming in my chair. And the next year I felt that.
So you thought you were doing just fine,
Yep.
but because you weren't tracking it, you had no concept about what your metrics were.
No.
There's a quote that I love to say, and that's performance increases when progress is measured. So you had no comment, you had no concept, no understanding of what
right.
was really happening.
Like the whole year, I thought I was really good,
Yeah.
and by the time I realized, I was already late to the game.
It's too late.
It was too late, right?
Yeah.
And I was able to recover, and it took some time. But I had to get creative, and had I just been paying attention to my weekly numbers, to my monthly numbers, I would have been in a
that's
lot
a
better
game changer.
situation. Yeah.
One of the struggles I think the barbers have too is they get a lot of their money in cash, and so they put it in their pocket, and then they go get coffee, they go to lunch, and then on the way home they do something, and at the end of the week they say, "What? Where did all my money go?"
Oh, I mean, I have to say, me myself, I've noticed this since I've stopped working behind the chair. I always had cash. I never thought twice about cash. And now all of a sudden I don't have any cash, and I have to think differently, because it is nice to always have cash. It really is. But those are the things that add up, right? And so many times, even like with our students, when it comes time to the end of their schooling and they need to pay for their tests, and yes, it's $100, and yes, it's 2 tests, so it's $200. But they've taken over how many haircuts? How many $100 in tips have they had?
Yeah,
Why
hundreds of dollars.
Hundreds of dollars. And yes, they've needed it for gas, and yes, they've needed it for things, but they never set any money aside. So then they have to wait until after they graduate to make the money to buy the test, where if they would have just been setting that money aside, they could have done it. Cash counts, and you have to track your cash, or you won't get the car that you want. You won't get the house that you want, because you'll never have the income that you need on that piece.
So my thought with that is, if you don't put the cash in the bank, you can't prove that you earned it. So when you go to qualify for that home, if you don't have a bank statement to back up how much you earned, you don't get the house. So you can be this big shot making all this money, but at the end of the day, the bank's going to go, yeah, right. And you don't get the house. So just simply put a habit that you keep all your cash, you're not spending it on the tiny things, and then you put it in the bank, and then there's one simple way. At least you know what your income is.
Well, and you have to remember that when you go from being a W-2, like an hourly employee or whatever, you have a predictable paycheck. You know you're going to work this week. You're doing 40 hours. You know you're going to get this much of a paycheck. When you're independent, when you're a contractor, you're independent, you could go to work 50 hours and you have no idea what you're going to make. And this week could be golden, and this month could be golden. But, sure enough, come January, February, you don't have the money that you need to cover your rent. And if you didn't set any aside in November or December, it's going to hurt. But if you've been tracking your numbers and or like I typically knew February and October were always going to be my slowest months. So that's when I would take my vacation, so it would impact my business as less as possible. But I would also be sure that I had money set aside to cover my expenses on those months. But if you don't track your numbers, you don't know. And from year to year, you might not be able to see the fluctuation. It's awesome when you get 3 to 5 years of expenses and you can really track and hone in on this week is good, this week is bad. For whatever reason, it does get cyclical, and you can track it.
Well, we've covered a lot of stuff, and my takeaway from all of this is nothing here is crazy difficult. We haven't done anything that pretty much everybody can't do. These are just simple little tweaks that if people are willing to do, it will change everything. So this is just what we talk about here at the Barber School. We are specialists in the Barber School. The school was founded by Tim Height in 2007. He was the expert in the profession. I got to watch him my entire life and how he succeeded and what he did, and take a lot of those life lessons, and this is what we're teaching here at the Barber School. So we hope you come back and visit us here at the Barber School. Come see us. This is the place where you can find everything that you need, everything from training to get your license to afterwards, what to do and how to grow, how to scale your business here at the Barber School. And
these are the questions we love. I love answering these questions all day, all the time, from alumni, from future barbers, from everyone. Like, keep asking, keep finding out. Like, we are here to help you succeed and to build the business you want, and whatever we can do to help you get there, that's what we're invested in.
So thanks for watching. We appreciate it. Please like and share, and we'll see you the next time.